My dad mocked me at dinner, celebrating my twin's engagement. He's what a real man looks like. I clink my glass. Then I guess he'll love explaining that loan shark you owe $90,000 to. Dad went pale. My twin whispered, "You said you burned the paperwork." Family dinners at my parents' house were never really dinners. They were events. My mother, Evelyn, had a talent for making everything an ordeal. Fancy table settings, expensive wine that no one actually liked, background jazz music at just the right volume to make conversations feel forced. It was all a performance. Really, I debated skipping this one. But then Ryan, the golden boy, my identical twin, called and made it clear that my absence would be noted. He didn't say it outright, of course. He was too smooth for that. But there was always an unspoken expectation. Show up, play along, don't embarrass the family. So I showed up. Ryan was glowing, and for good reason. His fiancée, Julia, was by his side, her diamond rings sparkling under the chandelier. My mother was practically vibrating with excitement, while my father sat at the head of the table, swirling his whiskey, nodding with approval. I, on the other hand, had already finished my second drink and was debating whether I could stomach a third. "So, Julia," my mom gushed, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "Have you and Ryan decided on a wedding date yet?" "We're thinking about next June," Julia said, flashing her perfect white teeth. "Plenty of time to plan something elegant," my mother said approvingly. "And of course, we'll host the rehearsal dinner here." "Oh, of course," Julia said, glancing at Ryan, who smiled and took her hand. I rolled my eyes and reached for my glass. That was when my father turned to me. "And you, Logan?" he asked, his voice dripping with barely concealed disapproval. "What's your plan these days?" My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. I knew where this was going. It was the same conversation every time. Ryan was the successful one, the financial analyst who had a six-figure salary, a perfect fiancé, and a house in an up-and-coming neighborhood. I, on the other hand, was me, a freelance graphic designer who lived in a one-bedroom apartment with a leaky bathroom ceiling. I gave him my standard response. "Still doing design work." My father let out a short laugh. "Design work," he repeated, shaking his head as if the words tasted sour in his mouth. Ryan smirked, cutting into his steak. "Are you still working from that little coffee shop?" "Sometimes," I said flatly. My father made a sound in the back of his throat. "See, Julia," he said, turning to her. "This is why I always tell Ryan he makes smart choices. A real man doesn't waste his potential. He builds something stable, something lasting." I took a slow sip of my drink. Then he said it, the words that set everything into motion. "He's what a real man looks like." I stared at him for a second, then at Ryan, who was grinning like he just won a damn award. I set my glass down. "A real man, huh?" I asked, looking straight at Ryan. Ryan's smile faltered slightly. I leaned back in my chair, taking my time, enjoying the way the air in the room seemed to shift. "Then I guess he'll love explaining that loan shark you owe $90,000 to." The silence was immediate and suffocating. My father's face was drained of color. My mother froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Julia blinked. And Ryan. Ryan turned to me so fast I thought he might snap his own neck. "You said you burned the paperwork," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I smirked and took another sip of my drink. My father's chair scraped loudly against the floor as he pushed back from the table. "What the hell is he talking about?" he demanded, his voice suddenly sharp. Ryan's mouth opened, but no words came out. His eyes flicked between me, Julia, and our parents, his brain working overtime to find a way out of this. I gave him no time. "You know," I said casually, swirling the liquid in my glass. "That small loan Ryan took out a couple years ago, the one you helped him with? Turns out, he still owes $90,000. Julia turned to Ryan so fast, it was almost comical. "You borrowed money from a loan shark?" Ryan finally seemed to find his voice. It's not like that," he said quickly. "It was just a temporary thing." I snorted. "Temporary? You still owe almost six figures to a guy who breaks kneecaps for a living." Julia pulled her hand away from his. My father rounded on Ryan. "You told me it was taken care of." Ryan swallowed. I thought it was." "You thought?" My father's face turned an alarming shade of red. "You thought it was?" Ryan glared at me, his hands clenched into fists under the table. "You had no right to bring this up, Logan." I leaned forward, my smirk fading. "Oh, I had every right." My voice was low, steady. "You and Dad have spent years tearing me down, acting like I'm some kind of failure while you sit on your throne, pretending to be perfect. Well, guess what?" I gestured toward him. "Your little kingdom is built on a pile of bullcrap." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You don't know what you just done." "No," I said, standing up. "You don't." Julia abruptly pushed back her chair. "I need to go," she muttered, grabbing her purse. Ryan reached for her hand, but she yanked it away. "Don't," she snapped, her voice shaking. "Don't touch me." She turned to my parents. "I'm so sorry, but I need time to think." And just like that, she was gone. Ryan sat there, staring after her, his face unreadable. My father turned to me, his eyes full of cold fury. You just had to humiliate your brother like this. I scoffed. Oh, so it's fine when he humiliates me? I gestured at Ryan, who was still frozen in his seat, his fists clenched, his breathing uneven. He's been riding on your approval his whole life while you've treated me like a joke. But the second I exposed the truth, I'm the bad guy. My mother, silent until now, wiped at her eyes. This isn't the place for this, Logan. I exhaled, shaking my head. You know what? I think I'm done. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them all sitting in the mess they created. I didn't look back. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the one who lost. I walked out of that house feeling lighter than I had in years, but I knew, I knew that this wasn't over. My family didn't let things slide. My father would be seething, my mother would be crying, and Ryan wasn't the type to take a loss quietly. I barely made it to my car before my phone started buzzing. Ryan, I'll let it ring. Then a text came through. Ryan, pick up the damn phone. I smirked, tossing my phone onto the passenger seat before pulling out of the driveway. Let him stew in it. Let him panic. I'd waited years to watch him squirm. He could wait a few more hours. By the time I got back to my apartment, my phone had 7 missed calls, 2 from my dad, 5 from Ryan. I ignored them all, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto my couch. Then, at 11:43 p.m., my doorbell rang. I sat up slowly, my body already tense. Ryan. Had to be. I stood, walked to the door, and opened it without a word. Ryan shoved his way inside before I could even step back. What the freak is wrong with you? He spat, his voice low and furious. I shut the door behind him, crossing my arms. Oh, now you want to talk? Ryan turned, his face flushed with anger. His usual smooth, polished exterior was cracked. His jaw clenched too tight, his eyes wide, darting, desperate. You blindsided me, he hissed. At dinner, in front of Julia. Do you have any idea what you just did? I leaned against the wall, arms still crossed. I'd say I held up a mirror. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. You didn't have to do that. I let out a cold laugh. Did not. He turned back to me, his nostrils flaring. You could have come to me first. I pushed off the wall, stepping closer. You mean like how you and Dad have spent years dragging me through the dirt? Mocking me every chance you got? Acting like I'm some kind of failure while you parade around like you're untouchable? Ryan swallowed, but he didn't argue. I shook my head. I watched you lie, over and over, to their faces. I watched you pretend to be this perfect son while you buried your mistakes. And you really thought I was just going to sit there and take it? Ryan clenched his jaw. I told you I'd handle it. No, I said, voice sharp. You told me you burned the paperwork. But guess what? I still have copies. Ryan paled. I leaned in, lower my voice. And I wonder what Dad would think if he knew the whole truth. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. What the hell is that supposed to mean? I let the silence stretch, enjoying the flicker of fear in his eyes. Because Ryan knew, he knew there was more. I wasn't done yet. Not even close. And if he thought this was bad, Ryan stood there, breathing heavily, hands clenched at his sides. I could see the wheels spinning in his head, trying to figure out just how much I knew. What the hell are you talking about? He asked again, but his voice had lost some of its bite. I took my time walking to my kitchen, grabbing a glass and filling it with water. What do you think I mean? I asked, taking a slow sip. Ryan's fingers twitched. Logan, I swear to God, if you're bluffing. I set the glass down with a sharp clink and turned to face him. I never bluff. You should know that by now. Ryan's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. I watched him carefully. He wasn't just mad, he was worried. Because he knew. I did have more. I had the thing he never thought I'd find out. And he was terrified. You don't know crap, he said finally, but his voice was unsteady. I raised an eyebrow. No. I took a step forward, watching his entire body tense. How about this? I said, let's talk about where the rest of that loan money went. Ryan's eyes widened just for a second. It was quick, so quick that most people wouldn't have caught it. But I did. Because I knew. Logan, Ryan warned. I tilted my head. Tell me, did Julia ever wonder how you suddenly had money for that down payment? His nostrils flared. You're full of crap. I smirked. Am I? His silence was deafening. I let out a humorless laugh. God, you really thought I wouldn't find out, huh? I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling. I mean, I get it. I was the screw-up, right? The one nobody ever took seriously. Must have been real easy to assume I'd just keep my mouth shut while you spent years digging yourself into a hole. Ryan was shaking his head, backing away. You don't know what you're saying. But I did. Because 2 weeks ago, I got a call from an old friend. And that's when I found out the truth. Ryan hadn't just borrowed from a loan shark. He'd gambled. And lost. Big time. The first loan was for a shady investment deal. That much I already knew. But the rest? The reason he still owed money? That was because he'd been gambling after my father had bailed him out. And then he used part of Julia's down payment money to cover his losses. I hadn't planned on bringing this up at dinner. I really hadn't. But the second my father opened his mouth and called Ryan a real man, something in me snapped. Ryan took a step closer now, lowering his voice. Logan, listen to me. No, You listen, I interrupted. You want to talk about a real man? A real man doesn't lie to his fiancée. A real man doesn't gamble away his father's money and then steal from the woman he's about to marry. Ryan's face twisted in rage. You don't know crap. I cut him off. Then tell me I'm wrong. Silence. Thick. Heavy. He didn't deny it. Not this time. And that was all I needed. For the first time in our lives, Ryan had nothing to say. No clever comeback. No smug retort. Just silence. And I loved it. Ryan's breathing was shallow, his nostrils flaring, his hands twitching at his sides like he wanted to hit something. Probably me. I didn't move. I wanted him to sit in this moment. Let it sink in that I was in control now. I don't know where you're getting your information, Ryan said finally, his voice low, careful. But you need to drop it. I let out a short laugh. Drop it, I repeated, shaking my head. No, see, that's what you do. You cover crap up, you lie, and you pray that no one ever finds out. But guess what, brother? I leaned in slightly. I know. Ryan took a slow breath through his nose. His poker face was cracking, and I could see the desperation creeping in now. You don't get it, he muttered, rubbing his forehead. Oh no, I get it, I shot back. I get that you're a fraud. I get that Julia doesn't even know the house she's so excited about was bought with stolen money. I get that Dad has no idea you kept gambling after he bailed you out. Ryan's head snapped up. You don't know what you're talking about. I smirked. Oh, I do. And you know how I know? I pulled out my phone and scrolled for a second before turning the screen toward him. Ryan went still. The color drained from his face as he stared at the screenshot on my screen. A text message. Ryan, man, you gotta pay up. I can't keep covering for you. If my boss finds out you've been running tabs at the tables without cash in hand, he's gonna come looking for his money. I watched as his eyes flicked across the words. His lips slightly parted like he was trying to form an excuse, but couldn't think fast enough. Recognize the number? I asked. His jaw clenched. I did a little digging. I continued. That message came from Eric Carter. Ring any bells? Ryan swallowed hard. Eric Carter was a known bookie in Miami. He ran underground poker games, high-stakes bets, and, more importantly, he had a reputation for not being forgiving when people didn't pay up. Ryan had told everyone that he was done gambling, that he had learned his lesson after the first disaster. But this message? It was 2 months old. I could see the fight draining out of him, the exhaustion setting in. I tilted my head. Tell me, what happens when Julia finds out? Or better yet, what happens when Dad finds out? Ryan looked down at the floor, his breathing uneven. You're gonna ruin me, he muttered. I scoffed. I'm gonna ruin you? Ryan, you did this to yourself. I stepped back, crossing my arms. And you know what? I bet you were planning on keeping this quiet until the wedding, right? Let Dad foot the bill. Let Julia's parents chip in, and then somehow figure out a way to fix the mess after you said I do. Ryan's silence told me everything I needed to know. He had a plan. A crappy one, but a plan nonetheless. God, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. You really are unbelievable. Ryan finally looked up at me, his expression dark. What do you want? I blinked. Excuse me. His voice was hoarse now, tired. You've got me, okay? You've backed me into a corner. So what do you want, Logan? Ah, there it is. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't admitting fault. He was trying to negotiate. I let that sit for a second. Then I grinned. You're not in a position to ask that, I said. But don't worry, I'll let you know soon. Ryan's jaw ticked, but he said nothing. He turned abruptly, shoving his way past me and heading toward the door. But before he left, he hesitated. Then, without looking at me, he muttered, "Don't do anything stupid." And then he was gone. I stood there for a long time, my mind racing. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. And Ryan? He wasn't going to like it. Ryan had barely been gone for 5 minutes when my phone buzzed again. Dad. I let it ring. Then a text popped up. Dad, we need to talk. Now. I exhaled sharply, rubbing my temples. Of course, Ryan had run straight to him. Probably spinning some sob story about how I was out to get him, how I was twisting things. Typical. I grabbed my keys and wallet, debating whether I should just disappear for a few days. Maybe head to the Keys, hole up in some crappy motel where my family couldn't reach me. But I knew that wouldn't fix anything. Instead, I did something reckless. I texted Julia. Me. Hey, I think we need to talk. I wouldn't have said what I did at dinner if I didn't have proof. You deserve to know the truth. The text sent, and I tossed my phone onto the couch, bracing myself. I didn't have to wait long. She read the message almost immediately. Then, Julia, where are you? I texted her my address. Less than 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Julia standing there in an oversized hoodie and leggings, her face blotchy like she'd been crying. She clutched her phone in one hand, knuckles white. I stepped aside to let her in, and she walked straight to the center of my apartment, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Tell me everything, she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. I sighed, gesturing toward the couch. You might want to sit down. She didn't move. Just tell me. I rubbed the back of my neck. Okay, here's the short version. Ryan borrowed money from a loan shark 2 years ago. Dad helped him cover most of it, but he still owes 90 grand. Julia swallowed, nodding stiffly. I already got that much. I hesitated, then took a deep breath. Ryan never stopped gambling. Julia's entire body stiffened. I continued, my voice calm but firm. I have proof. He's been running tabs at underground poker games. He lost big. And when he couldn't pay, guess where some of the money came from? Julia's lips parted slightly, like she already knew but didn't want to believe it. I let the words settle before I said it outright. Your down payment. The one you thought you and Ryan were putting toward your new house. He used a chunk of it to cover his losses. Her face went completely blank. No, she whispered. I pulled out my phone and opened a screenshot I'd shown Ryan earlier. Then, I pulled up a bank transfer receipt, one that traced money from Julia's shared account with Ryan to a private, unlisted account under his name. I held out the phone. See for yourself. Julia took it with trembling fingers, her eyes scanning the messages, the numbers. Her breath hitched. She scrolled down, then up, then closed her eyes like she was trying to force herself to wake up from a bad dream. Then suddenly she laughed. It was a cold, humorless sound. Wow, she said, shaking her head. I mean, wow. I stayed silent. She let out a slow breath, handing me back the phone. And he just, what? Thought I'd never notice. Pretty much. She swallowed hard, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. I was going to marry him. I didn't know what to say to that. She let out another bitter laugh. God, and your dad still defends him. Of course, I said. Ryan's his perfect son. I'm just the bitter screw-up in their eyes. Julia was quiet for a moment. Then she turned to me, eyes sharp. What do you want to do? She asked. I blinked. What? Her lips pressed into a thin line. Ryan screwed you over too, didn't he? And your dad? They've treated you like crap for years. I tilted my head. What are you saying? Julia exhaled slowly. Then she looked me dead in the eye. I think it's time we get even. I stared at her for a second. Then for the first time in a long, long while, I grinned. I looked at Julia, really looked at her. Her hands were still shaking, but there was something new in her expression, resolve. Not just anger, not just heartbreak. She wanted to do something, and I did too. For the first time in our lives, Ryan wasn't the one in control. I'm listening, I said, crossing my arms. Julia took a deep breath. Ryan lies because he thinks he'll never get caught. Your dad enables him because he's invested in the idea of Ryan being perfect. If we hit them both where it hurts, their image, they'll crumble. She was right. Ryan had spent his whole life building a reputation as the responsible twin. If people found out the truth, his entire foundation would shatter. What are you thinking? I asked. She exhaled, pacing a little. Ryan's whole world is built on lies. We expose them, but we have to be smart about it. I smirked. Oh, I can be smart. Julia sat down, pulling her knees up slightly. What do we have on him? I grabbed my laptop and opened a folder. Bank statements, loan documents, text messages. I even have call logs with Eric Carter, the bookie. Julia leaned forward, scanning the files. Then she looked at me. What's your dad's biggest weakness? I laughed. His reputation. Easily. Julia nodded. So we ruin it, but not in a way that makes us look bad. And with that, we started planning. Ryan and Julia's engagement party was the perfect opportunity. My parents had rented out a fancy event space in downtown Miami. It was supposed to be a night of champagne, speeches, and networking. Julia played her part beautifully. She showed up in a stunning dress, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. Ryan, clueless as ever, draped an arm around her and soaked in the attention. Meanwhile, I had other plans. I made sure that certain people got access to certain documents. A little anonymous email here, a well-placed printout there. By the time dinner was served, the whispers had started. Guests were checking their phones, side-eyeing Ryan. A few of his colleagues murmured in hushed voices, their expressions turning from admiration to disgust. Ryan noticed. He leaned toward Julia. Why is everyone acting weird? Julia smiled sweetly. Oh, you'll see. Then she stood and tapped her glass. The room quieted. Julia turned to Ryan, taking his hand. Ryan, when we got engaged, I thought I knew everything about you. I thought we were building a future together, built on trust. Ryan's smile faltered. Jules. Julia pulled out her phone and projected a message onto the big screen behind us. The text from Eric Carter. Ryan froze. Gasps echoed around the room. His boss, his colleagues, even our family stared at the screen. The words were clear. Ryan, man, you gotta pay up. I can't keep covering for you. If my boss finds out you've been running tabs at the tables without cash in hand, he's gonna come looking for his money. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Julia's voice was even. This is from 2 months ago, and that's not even the worst of it. She clicked, and another document appeared. A bank transfer. $25,000 moved from their shared wedding fund to a private account. Julia turned to Ryan. Recognize this? It's the money I thought was going toward our house. Turns out, you used it to pay your gambling debts. Ryan's face went completely blank. He was done. My father stood abruptly, his face beet red. Ryan, tell me this is a joke. Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Julia inhaled sharply, then turned to the guests. I thought you all should know the kind of man Ryan really is. Then she took off the ring and dropped it in Ryan's drink. A perfect exit. The crowd exploded. With Ryan drowning in scandal, my dad tried to do damage control. But there was a problem. He helped Ryan cover up the first loan. And I had proof. I made sure it leaked. Suddenly, my dad wasn't a successful businessman with perfect sons. He was the father who covered up a financial disaster to protect his golden boy while treating his other son, me, like dirt. His credibility took a hit. A big one. Some of his biggest clients started pulling out. They didn't want to be associated with someone who covered up fraud. And just like that, my father's precious reputation crumbled. Ryan tried to reach out to me. He called, texted, even showed up at my door once. But I didn't let him in. He wasn't sorry. He was desperate. Dad went quiet. For the first time in my life, he didn't have anything to say to me. I should have felt bad, but I didn't. Because for the first time ever, I was free. No more comparisons. No more being treated like I wasn't good enough. I was done. Ryan lost everything. His engagement, his job, his status. Dad took a massive hit to his business. People didn't trust him anymore. And me? I thrived. I moved to a new apartment. One without a leaky bathroom ceiling. My business started picking up. Hell, even Julia and I kept in touch. Not romantically, but as friends. She told me she felt like she'd dodged a bullet. One night, she texted me, "Julia, you did the right thing." They had it coming. I smiled. Because yeah, they did. And damn, did it feel good.